The black community in Charlottesville. Okay, you know, there is a black community in Charlottesville. There has been one. It's been a real good one. One of the things that I failed to tell the other class was that there were a lot of black businesses in Charlottesville, and they were predominantly in the Vinegar Hill area. Does everybody know where the Vinegar Hill area is? Who knows where the Vinegar Hill area is? Can anybody tell me? Now, Vinegar Hill, everybody knows where the Omni is?
Yeah.
The Omni Hotel?
No.
Yeah.
Downtown?
Yeah, on downtown. That area used to be thriving from where the telephone building sits, okay, all across the street was McGregor Motors where they got the little shopping center in there, okay, down from the bus station. Next to the bus station there was Dr. Garrett, who, bless you, who was one of the two black physicians in Charlottesville. The other, it was Dr. Ralph Brown, and we'll go by his house where he used to have his business. It's right in the neighborhood. And Dr. Garrett, like I said, was next to the bus station, which is similar to when I grew up in my hometown. We had two black doctors. One was Dr. Hannibal, one was Dr. Harrison. Dr. Hannibal's wife was the first African-American city councilwoman in the United States. That was in the great state of North Carolina, in the great city of Kinston, North Carolina. Y'all can't go there, y'all about North Carolina. Anyway, how many of you go to the beach in North Carolina? What beach do you go to?
I go to Carolina Beach and sometimes Wrightsville Beach.
Okay, so you're down in the Wilmington area, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Outer Banks.
Outer Banks, tourists, tourists,
Oak Island.
tourists,
Outer Banks.
tourists.
Emerald Isle. It's near the Outer Banks.
Yeah, but it's right down the highway from what big beach, famous beach? It's one of the best family beaches in the state of North Carolina.
Myrtle Beach.
No.
South Carolina.
You ever heard of Morehead City, North Carolina? Atlantic Beach? Right down the coastline. Right down the coastline. And down Wilmington, you got Onslow Beach, which was prevalent for the military, because it's a Marine base, Jacksonville, close by there. But let's get back to Virginia right quick, Charlottesville. But no, a lot of similarities. There were a lot of black businesses in Charlottesville. On Main Street, they were somewhere on Main Street. On Main Street, and like I said, Society Hill, they call it Society Hill. Reverend, drawing a blank on his name, Banks, what was Darian's last? Bates, Reverend Bates,
yeah.
has a publication called the Society Hill newspaper, and that gives you an update on the black community here. As you know, you're sitting in what used to, well, you are sitting in it. This is an annex, but the front part of the building, the office, other part of the building, was the all-black high school for Charlottesville, Jackson P. Burley High School. Okay, and like in my hometown, it was Atkins Senior High School, and Jackson P. Burley is synonymous with this neighborhood. If you notice, there's not a lot of school vandalism in this neighborhood, is it? And that's because most of it, even the elders in this neighborhood, they all went to this school. Now, there's a young lady sitting out in the hallway monitoring for testing. Ms. Adams worked here. She went to school here. She graduated from here, and she worked here up until last year. She retired last year. Then there was a lady named Ms. Howard, who used to be there. Some of you may have ridden on a bus with her this school year because she substitutes as a bus driver sometimes. But she was a musician here, and she did a lot of work with Mr. Jennings before he got, when he first came here. She still accompanies him sometimes, and she became the principal here. She was first assistant principal, then the principal here. But she graduated from this high school. She was here for about 40-some years, and the person who has the longevity record is someone that I love dearly. She's been here, I think, 42 or 43 years. And you all know her. She's a very nice lady. That's right.
Lloyd.
Yeah, that's her. Okay, and it's not my wife, it's my sister. Okay, let's get that straight. Okay, my wife is Mrs. Boyd. Okay, but anyway, Ms. Howard, Ms. Howard's father owned one of the thriving barbershops in the city. It's called Joker's. And this name is still the name Joker's. He's passed, her brother's passed now, but it was right over on, you know where Staples is over here? Okay, that little short street with Bell Funeral Home, which is one of the oldest funeral homes. That family has owned a funeral home in this area for years. There were two funeral homes, Bell and Johnson. Johnson Funeral Home was owned by the Johnson family, of which Reverend Floyd Johnson was a very strong activist in this city for civil rights, human rights, black rights. But the most outspoken person from Charlottesville for civil rights and human rights was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Drury Brown. There's a facility downtown called the Drury Brown Job Training Center. That's named after Mr. Brown. And Mr. Brown was a very astute politician. He knew all the big wigs, and anytime there was anything that happened that was unfair, you could count on Mr. Brown speaking up for it. He's not like today's present day men. They don't speak up too much, okay? They should, but they don't. But Mr. Brown had no reservations about speaking up. Again, we had the two doctors, Garrett and Brown, and then we had the Johnsons, who were very active in civil rights and human rights. The Johnsons actually helped integrate the wards up at the University of Virginia Hospital. They were segregated too. Everybody knows what I mean by segregated, right? Yes. Okay. During the period in Virginia, there was a period in Virginia called massive resistance. Does anyone know what that is? No, sir. Massive resistance. Yes, sir.
Isn't that when schools didn't want them to integrate?
Okay, that's when they didn't want to integrate, but it wasn't the schools, it was the governor. The governor then, Governor Burley, declared a state of massive resistance, and that meant that they didn't want to integrate the schools. Where I grew up, rather than integrate the schools, they built a new school. Okay, in Charlottesville, they shut the schools down. In Prince Edward County, where Longwood University is housed, and by the way, on the way to Longwood University, what famous African, nobody in this room has ever heard of Carter G. Woodson? No. You haven't heard of Carter G. Woodson? No. Well, if you haven't heard of Carter G. Woodson, you haven't heard of education. If you haven't heard of Carter G. Woodson, then you don't know what education is. Shame, shame, shame. You guys got to hit the books. You got to know something else about a little boo-boo, a little goo-goo, a little Wayne, a little Jane, and all that. You got to hit the books. You got to hit the books, guys. You got to hit the books to find out something about your background. And Carter G. Woodson affected just as many whites as he did blacks in terms of education. But his house is on the way to Longwood University. 3-minute walk from Longwood University is the Edward R. Moulton Museum. Anybody know about the Moulton Museum? Okay, Prince Edward County, during the period of massive resistance, Prince Edward County shut all of their schools down. Rather than mix, they sent the whites to private schools. Blacks went where they could, home, visit a relative in the city or somewhere else to go to school. And the way they did that was one day one of the students told the principal there that the student was in trouble downtown Farmville. He jumped up to go see about what happened, and the whole student body walked out of school and refused to go back because of the poor conditions of the school. And that was started by a young lady, nice looking young lady too. And the 7th grade does go on a tour there. At least they've gone for the last 2 years, and hopefully you guys will get to go to the Moulton Museum. The curator of that museum, everybody knows what a curator is, right? It's not a person that helps sick people, man. It's a person that's in charge of the museum. You know, make sure the artifacts, all the historical things in order and everything. When he spoke at the Freedom Fund dinner in Charlottesville, Virginia, for the NAACP year before last. And very good speaker, but now they've given him, he has a new job, and he's going to Greensboro, North Carolina, to one of the historical black colleges, North Carolina A&T University, who has a big museum there. And he's going to be the curator of that museum. But the period of massive resistance was when they just shut down and said, we will not integrate. this won't happen. In the city of Charlottesville, there were 12 young people who helped to integrate the schools. Please don't do that. That's distracting. Okay. Thanks. They were known as the Charlottesville 12, and they recently gave them a plaque dedicated to them. Has anybody ever heard the name Alex Zan? Anybody heard of Alex Zan? He was just over at this school last Friday speaking to Ms. Blunt's social studies class. He was born and raised right here in Charlottesville. He's one of the original Charlottesville 12. He is in the social studies book over in the Richmond area, going up the steps of Venable School where they integrated the schools. Now, in order for black kids to integrate the schools, they had to take a test. And they still have those test scores up at the University of Virginia in the archives up there, the Black History Archives. And believe it or not, those scores were higher than some of the white kids who had already went into school. Ronald Woodfalk, they all integrated Venable School. Anybody know where Venable School is? Yeah. Okay. They integrated Venable School. And, you know, they got a few threats and stuff too. But, again, that was during the period of massive resistance. Like I said, in my hometown, they just said, well, we won't be bothered with all that. We just build them a new school and let them go there. My class was the last class to graduate from the original black high school in Kinston, North Carolina. That's our claim to fame. We just celebrated our 50th reunion last year. 50 years being out of high school. Y'all ain't even started yet. Okay. I said about the two doctors, Drury Brown, one of the most intelligent black women that was born and raised in Charlottesville, who became chairman of the school board, ran OIC, Opportunities Industrial Organization, Corporation. Used to live right across the street over here. We'll walk by the apartment building she used to live in, as we were with other people, was Alicia Bowler Lugo. Anybody ever heard that name before? You ever seen that name before? Alicia Lugo. You never. She's been over here several times and did dedications and stuff. Very intelligent woman, but she ran the Charlottesville School Board. The other you might know, because she was here for a while this year, and Mr. Shedd had her set up a Black History Inventors Museum last year. And I mean, it was just like a museum in the media center and in the hallway, and that was Miss Maxine Hollins, another very intelligent. Miss Hollins' claim to fame was she had a group called Men on a Mission. And Miss Hollins had these guys in Atlanta, Alabama, New York. They traveled everywhere. Okay, Miss Hollins also taught at Spelman, at Tuskegee, and at Hampton University. You ever heard of those places? You heard of them? You didn't have it and you ain't heard of that? Shame, shame, shame. Okay. And then, like I said, there were a lot of thriving businesses on Main Street, Society Hill. This was called the Rose Hill neighborhood, which we'll take a short tour of that, of the Rose Hill neighborhood. And what else I told Ms. Shedd last period? I'm listening to it. Told you about Johnson Funeral Home. Okay, athletes. Oh, we had two African-American sheriffs in the city of Charlottesville. One was Miss Cornelia Johnson, and then the youngest person who's ever been sheriff in Charlottesville, the current sheriff, Mr. James Brown, the third. James Brown is a very progressive young man who happened to have graduated from Longwood University, by the way, and he's still the sheriff. He ran unopposed this year, and he has a real unique hobby, something that you all like to do. What do you think it is?
Play video games.
Sports?
He has a recording studio in his house.
Oh, right.
Recording studio in his house, and he's getting ready to release a CD. The sheriff, city sheriff's getting ready to do that. But a very, very progressive young man. And Julie Brown, okay. Athletes. Everybody know where 10th Street is?
Yeah.
You know where the Hampton Inn is on corner 10th and Main?
Yeah.
Well, directly across from the Hampton Inn, there's a landmark, and it's for Mr. Roosevelt Brown, who played for the New York Giants, football player, in the Hall of Fame, from Charlottesville, Virginia. Miss Adams, anybody know Miss Adams? Okay, Mr. Adams' brother is in the Virginia Basketball Hall of Fame, Frankie Allen. Okay, Frankie Allen, yes. Then one of my best friends who just passed in February, Coach Curtis Elder, one of the winningest track coaches in the nation. 7 state championships, 20 conference championships, 20 regional championships. You gotta know something to accomplish all that. And they get ready, they have dedicated this field to him over at Charlottesville, and they're getting ready to redo that whole thing and make it a big complex in his name. Those are some of the athletes. Another good athlete who graduated from this area, went to college, and was a professional basketball player was Mr. Philip Stenning, who is also a relative of Jordan Martin. So there you have it as far as athletes. Tennis, you had the Kelly brothers who lived right up Preston Avenue, which by the way was a thriving black business area. There was a cafe there called Wesley's. Everybody used to hang out there. Beneath Wesley's, there was a club called the Pink Panther. They used to have a ball down there. Anyway, but on Preston Avenue, they had barbershop. They had Rose Hill Barbershop where the guys, you guys ever been in the barbershop on Saturday morning?
Yeah.
The old timey barbershop where the guys play checkers in the back and you had all the neighborhood gospel stuff. He ain't had no fun if you ain't visited the barbershop. Even the ladies, we even let ladies in there sometimes. Okay, but that's a good place to visit. You get all the local gossip in there. Okay, and again, we'll talk about this property and stuff when we go out, and we got to go on a walking tour now. All I ask you guys to do. Okay, it belongs to Jackson P. Burley, right? Well, why don't you have it now?
He sold it. He still don't.
Okay, they kicked him out, they stole it. Why don't they have it? Why don't they have it now? He didn't donate it, they declared eminent domain. Anybody know what eminent domain is? Yes, sir.
The government.
Right, when the government says we want it, we need it, whether it's yours or not, so we taking it. So now the good thing that they did for him, if you can call it a good thing, is they moved his house that was sitting on, he owned all this land. They took his house and took it up for him and moved it across the street over here. This big yellow house over here, that belongs, you'll see it when we go up the street, that belongs to Jackson P. Burley. Bless you.
Let's see, what do you know about Burley? Don't all speak up at one time. You know, come on.
It used to be the African American school.
For who?
The African Americans.
For what? I mean, city, county, or what? Both, city and county. Do you know what year it opened its doors? No. I can't hear you. Speak up. 1951. Do you know what the date it closed its doors as a high school? Huh? Well, you're right. You get the prize. Get the prize. It opened in 51, closed in 67. For the city kids, it replaced Jefferson High School, which is then became Jefferson Elementary School over on 4th and Commerce Street. And it closed a lot of county schools. They put us all here together. It was originally an experiment, and it turned out a lot better than what they expected. But due to desegregations of schools, that's why it closed up as a high school. The city sold this portion of it, and the county bought it. It had a lot of names in between the time, but then they brought it back to Burley Middle School.
I got any more questions for Ms. Howe? Yes, sir.
What were some of the names before it settled on Burley?
Jack Jewett Annex. I don't know all of them, but I know it had several. One of them was Jack Jewett Annex. Then they decided to bring it back as Burley Middle School.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We on the road. And when my family moved here, I didn't come with them because I was in college in the service, but my brother used to be, my brother was a North Carolina freestyle champion at age 7, and he could dive. He was a serious diver. And when they first opened this pool, people wouldn't go in the pool. They'd stand around the fence just to watch him dive. Then when he finished diving, then they'd go in the pool. But he could definitely swim.
He was one of the first lifeguards there?
Yeah, yes he was. A gentleman by the name of Manus Wesley used to have a cafe there. There was another barber shop right next to it. There was a basement where Mr. Carey had a club called the Pink Panther. This was all black, all of this. And this is where most people came all the time. Okay, let's turn around. In Charlottesville, a kid from the neighborhood, some guys from the neighborhood, wanted to sneak in for a swim, and unfortunately one of them drowned. The thing is, the family of the young man that drowned, they all went to Burley. Okay? This house, to me, has some significance because a gentleman that used to stay here in this house right here is now, he was the assistant dean of the law school at North Carolina Central University. He's a Charlottesville boy, born and raised, but he's now the money man for North Carolina Central University. And I had the pleasure of knowing him. He was a good friend of mine. He still is. His name is Dr. Ronald Stephen Douglas. He's online too. You can find out a lot about him. At the Charlottesville post office, and unless he just retired yesterday, he's probably the oldest person to ever work at a post office for longevity. Mr. Mason, Mr. Lewis Mason stays down this street. Very informative gentleman. And actually, we used to have a club called the West End Social Club. Actually, Mr. Mason and I are the only 2 members that are living now. Even my father was a member. Everybody else has died off. There were several gentlemen that lived on Charlton Avenue in the club. Mr. Wesley used to own a cafe and restaurant on Preston Avenue. Again, all this was, and back in the day, Wilhart Motors, the Dodge Motor Company, was right up the street here. It's called Wilhart Motors. And one of the young men that used to work there still works for Ford now out at the Ford place on Pantop. But yes, this was Jackson P. Burley's house. Which was a bed and breakfast. They also had entertainment on Sunday evening. Like I said, Dr. Brown stayed in this white vinyl house on the corner of Charlton Avenue and Rose Hill Drive. It used to be a brick building. And right across the street from him, diagonally, there was a gentleman by the name of William Lloyd, who was a professional golfer and was extremely good. And all kinds of golfers used to come to Charlottesville to take lessons from him and stuff. And up to the day he died, he had a golf club in his hand. As a matter of fact, on a picture of him on the obituary had him swinging a golf club. Athletically, right across from the Hampton Inn on Main Street, corner Main and 10th, is a big plaque to Roosevelt Brown, who's in the Football Hall of Fame, born and raised in Charlottesville. Learn how to read, learn how to write, learn how to spell. That's what it boils down. I forget the jingle that I did. But hey, you guys, I'm telling you, this is just part of education. The jar of education that you're going to get is going to be out beyond the school. The only problem is you got to take the preparation the school gives to prepare you to go out there and get it. You ought to know all that, didn't you? Huh? Well, that's what it's all about.